Okay, so welcome to the backpacking section event this evening. I just wanted to give a quick introduction to the backpacking section because we always have new members on the call.
Identify yourself.
So first of all, I am the chair of the backpacking section. My name's Louise Campbell-Blair. So just a quick couple of slides about the backpacking section, and then we will introduce the speakers. So for the backpacking section, we have our own routes and places, and we have over 150 of these, which the trip leaders can select from. And as an example of what we did last year, we had 47 backpacking trips, 3 camping trips, and 4 gear checks, which are typically early season one-nighters close into town, so you can check out new gear or check out your gear from last year, make sure there's no holes or damage in it. And our trips range from 1 night to around 5 nights duration. And last year we went to Colorado, obviously, Wyoming, Utah, and Arizona. The section has a number of signature events. In March, we have a summit for trip leaders where we all gather and talk about new processes, thoughts about how the year went, thoughts about what we want to do this year, do some training, get everyone excited about the year. This year, we have a brand new event on June the 6th, which you're all invited to. This is called Tents and Tastes. And we have a number of you setting up your preferred tent, hammock, car camping, tent structure, so we can all see what works for you and get some ideas. And we also have our favorite backcountry chef, Chef Corso, coming to give a backcountry cooking demonstration. And that's going to be at CMC Base Camp on Saturday, June the 6th. We typically have an end of season party in October, so stay tuned to hear about that. And then for our educational events, we've done 3 of these already this year, and you can find the recordings for the first 2 on our website on the CMC page. We're still working on our recording for the Caltopo navigation training we did, so stay tuned for that. Today, you're all signed up for managing wildfire risk. And then in June, we have a presentation on how to reduce your pack weight and how to select those big 4 items to make your summer easier. We also have a newsletter every month, a Facebook page, and our own web page under the special interest section on the CMC website. So a little bit about BPX trips. They're a bit different to a regular CMC hike. They are for members only. The leader will typically ask for your permission and may do some screening. And the idea is to make sure this is the right trip for you. So you're not above your comfort zone or over-terrained, and you can manage the trip. And most leaders will hold a planning call or a Zoom meeting about 10 days before departure and go through a detailed trip and emergency plan with you. And I think they'll now be all including some wildfire activities as well. Trip registration opens 30 days in advance, and you do not need backpacking school to register. However, the trip leader might require some backpacking skills to go on their trip, depending what the style of the trip is. And all the trips and events will be on the calendar on the BPX webpage, so they're very easy for you to find there. And I do want to give a big shout out to our trip leaders because without them, we don't have a section, and also the BPX committee. So the BPX trip leaders have a little extra training than a regular CMC leader because we are taking you out into the backcountry for multiple days. So big shout out to our BPX trip leaders. And now I want to introduce tonight's agenda. So we have 2 speakers tonight. Linda Lawson, who I'm sure is no stranger to any of you. Linda is the co-founder of the BPX section. She's also a CMC trip leader, and she instructs for a wilderness trekking school, wilderness first aid, backcountry incident management, avalanche terrain avoidance, AIRI, and she also has sat and is sitting on the Denver Group Council and CMC State. And then we have Ina Jensen from Evergreen Fire and Rescue, who's patiently waiting for us to finish Linda's presentation. And I'll introduce Ina when we get to his presentation. So first of all, I'm going to hand over to Linda, and here's your first slide. Okay.
Thank you very much, Louise. Tonight, I'll be talking about a subject that most of you think that we understand, backcountry risk. And we as experienced backcountry travelers often overestimate some concerns and underestimate how quickly things can change in the backcountry. And of course, that involves weather. So why am I talking about this? I'm not an expert. Einar is the expert. I'm talking about this because I am a concerned CMC trip leader and backpacking leader. And I have had to cancel trips because there were fires in the area or because there was a fire ban, a total fire ban in a county. When we arrived at the ranger station, it just came into effect on that morning. The ranger didn't even know about it before she showed up for work. So there are some surprises that you get. And tonight we'll be talking about the wildfire danger. And the issue is that you, as backcountry travelers and leaders, are experienced, but the goal of tonight is to sharpen your awareness and recognize the need for quick decision making around the hazards that can escalate, particularly wildfire. Next slide. Okay. So when we think about dangers in the backcountry, these are the items that we generally think about. Big animals. Mountain lions are always a concern, skunks sometime, porcupines. Some people are concerned about snakes. Some people are concerned about fire ants. And the fact is that our concerns about those animals tend to be over exaggerated, whereas the concerns about weather tend to be underestimated. And what we hope to impart to you tonight is to plan considerably more than you have done in the past concerning exit routes, escape routes. Next slide. Okay. So when we're backpacking, we know that there are certain hazards that will injure us. And weather hazards are consistently underestimated. Hail, flash floods, rising water crossings. I've certainly heard some stories about that. Heat, lightning. These are all hazards that even those experienced travelers among us tend to downplay until they actually happen. And then there is the other ingredient, the human ingredient. Other people, either in your group or in the vicinity. Next slide. Wildfires. When heat, wind, and low humidity all congregate together, fire danger starts rising. So one of the things we want to talk about tonight is the red flag warning. And certainly I've received these in text messages or in messages to my email. And what do they really mean when you get a red flag warning? Well, it's telling you that there are three things that are combining to escalate fire danger. And those three things are the conditions, how dry it is, how wet it is. When will they occur? They're going to occur shortly, or they wouldn't have put out the red flag warning. And why do they occur? Because you've got that continuing combination of wind, low humidity, and high temperatures. When there's smoke, there's fire. And Einar will be talking about smoke and different colors of smoke and what it means in his presentation. So the red flag warning is very, very important. And it's a behavior concept. It's telling you that everything is in place to exacerbate the fire growth. So one of the things we want to talk about are the fire bans. And the fire bans are issued by several different organizations. They can be issued by a county sheriff, a ranger district, a national park, a state park. And one of the things you need to know is that they aren't consistent, that one county can have a level 1, which prohibits certain activities. Another county can have a level 1, and it does not prohibit the same activities. When we look at Summit County, this was an actual fire ban that was issued by the combination of the county, the sheriff, and the Forest Service. And they prohibited these items, open burning, non-designated smoking. I know very few of you are smoking these days, fireworks and chainsaws. I haven't seen anybody in the backcountry with a chainsaw lashed to their pack unless it was a forest worker. So what does a stage 1 allow in Summit County? No, go back. That's prohibited. There should be a slide that says allowed. Go back. There you go. Summit County, stage 1 allowed. Fire pits with embers, screens, and permits. Campfires in permanent rings within formal campgrounds. Liquid or gas-fueled devices. Okay, here's where it says that a stage 1 in Summit County will allow you to use your jet boil or your white gas stove or your lantern. And you can even use your hot air balloon if you brought it along. Next. In this source, Uncover Colorado, stage 1 are not exactly the same as they are for Summit County. This says that it prohibits any fires outside of established campgrounds or fires in metal and concrete fire pits or at picnic areas. But it does not say that your jet boil or your white gas stove are prohibited. Okay. Stage 2 is a total fire ban. However, even under a total fire ban, this website tells you that liquid fueled and gas fueled devices are typically permitted under stage 2. So the fact is that you really need to call the sheriff or the Forest Service and find out what is the explicit prohibitions and explicit allowances in the particular county that your trip is going to be going to. If you're going to be in 2 different counties, then you need to know what each county has as a fire ban. And I don't know about many of you, but I have to say that seeing a sign on the highway that says it's fire season is in March is a first for me this year. This big wet storm we've had recently certainly will help the fire danger, but my sense is that it is not taking away the fire danger that we've been experiencing. Next slide. This is another source. This was Gossamer Gear, and Gossamer Gear's education indicated that campfires, again, in designated areas or warming fires or fires to roast your marshmallows were specifically prohibited. However, stage 2 permitted liquid gas or gas fueled devices. So you really need to understand what each individual organization that is issuing the fire ban has as permitted or not permitted. Stage 3 fire restrictions means you are not going in. And a question for Einer in his presentation is, if you're already in a forest, how do you know whether or not a stage 3 fire restriction is then put in to the area in which you and your travelers are contained? So maybe Einer can address that for us in his presentation. But if you haven't been in the forest before the fire restriction stage 3 is issued, you won't be going in. If you're already in, how do you get noticed you need to come out? Thank you. These are key sources and steps. They're very general. So the state Department of Natural Resources and Forestry websites will give you some information. County and local agencies, Sheriff's Office website, as we've said, air quality districts. And one of the things I really want to mention in air quality is the fact that Roger Wendell has an excellent article on air quality and what to do about various levels of air quality on the CMC blog. I'm not going to address air quality. I don't believe Einer is either, but you need to know about the various levels of air quality. Don't be upset if one of or more of your participants cancels due to the air quality and the concerns that they have. And if you need to cancel because you believe the air quality in the area in which you plan your trip is too high for anyone, do it. Don't wait. We want our members, our hikers, our backcountry travelers to be safe, and air quality is one of the issues. There are state burn hotlines. I looked for one in Colorado. I did not find it. I found a lot of other associated hotlines. And then, of course, the National Weather Service provides red flag warnings, giving you information about the winds, the humidity, and the fire risk. So, what do you as a trip leader do? In addition to all the planning that you've done without the knowledge of fires, you need to look at the watershed. Look at the water locations within the area in which you will be traveling. Are there streams, ponds, lakes where you could escape from a moving fire? And fires move faster uphill. So, do you have a route that will take you out of the fire danger downhill? In meadows, there is less vegetation than in the forest. Is there a meadow where your group could meet and stay there? Is there a pond that's close to the meadow? And always, who's carrying what communication? Is it a two-way? Is it a one-way? Do you have the telephone numbers of all the county sheriffs? If you don't, we have a slide that gives you that information. And a paper map. A paper map is so critical because it provides a larger area for you to identify how you can escape an oncoming fire. So if you have been in a fire area and you had to uh, evacuate from it, once you're out of danger, then you obviously want to take a head count, know that all of your people are there, assess each individual's condition. Okay, what is their lung capacity? Are they breathing well? How are they breathing? Are they coughing? And then if there are firefighters in the area, which there are likely to be if you have escaped from a running fire, and Einar is going to show you some slides on that, then you want to follow their instructions. Do not break out on your own. If you need medical assistance for any of the individuals in your group or yourself, ask for it. Once everything is out of the way, you can give the CMC emergency desk a call and say, we're safe. Thank you very much. I have a couple more slides for you. This is the sources that I have used tonight in putting together this presentation. And the next slide is from the Backcountry Incident Management School that gives you the sheriff's numbers for all of these locations, indicating what the county sheriff is and what the town is. So in Breckenridge, it's the Summit County Sheriff. In Leadville, it is the Lake County Sheriff. So I hope this is helpful to you. Do we have any questions in the chat box?
Uwe, are you online and are you managing the chat for us? If not, if anyone has a question, we'll open up the phones for a couple of minutes just to answer your questions live. And if you want to grab the screen share, I know, while we're answering a couple of questions, that would be useful. And yes, the slides and the recording will be available afterwards. Okay, well, if we have no other questions, one hint that I think comes out of Linda's presentation is a really good idea is to carry an N95 mask in your pack just in case a fire does break out.
Yes, because from what I've learned, more people will die from the chemical inhalation of the fire than would die from actually the flames of the fire.
So, okay, so Ina, let's start your hand over
You've
to you.
got, I'm sorry, Louise, you've got a couple of questions in the chat.
Okay, so yes, the slides will be available afterwards. The sheriff's list is actually, we'll post that, but it is on the Backcountry incident management cards that all trip leaders have. If you're not a trip leader, we can post those as well. Is there a difference for backpacking stoves with valves versus those without valves, i.e. alcohol stoves? Linda, do you want to?
Uh, I believe that in some of the allowances under certain counties, they will say that it must have an on-off valve. So that's where you again have to check out the individual county for what is prohibited and what is allowed, indicating whether or not you have a kerosene stove with no valve or whether you have jet boils, other types of stoves that have an on-off valve.
Okay, I think that is it. So
Okay.
Ina, we'll let you tee it up. And while Ina's getting his slides ready, you should be able to grab the screen share. Let me introduce Ina Jensen, who is the Risk Reduction Coordinator and Public Information Officer for Evergreen Fire and Rescue. He's worked for Evergreen Fire and Rescue since 2022 and is responsible for engaging, educating, and empowering members of the public to reduce risks from multiple hazards, including wildfire and evacuations. And he told us on the phone the other day that sometimes he does as many as 5 presentations like this a day. So I think we have the right person on the job tonight. So, in addition to all that work, he studied environmental history, published a cultural history of fire, and considers himself a recovered journalist, serves as public information officer, and belongs to the National Science Teaching Association. So, Ina, thank you so much for your time tonight, and we will hand over to you.
You're welcome. I want to just make sure, give me a thumbs up if you can see my slide here.
I can see it, so I expect everyone else can.
Outstanding. All right. I know it's 5, 6 years post COVID, but sometimes technology is still silly. So, Louise, Linda, thank you for the opportunity to speak to the group tonight. If you have questions along the way, go ahead and put them in the chat. I'll try to monitor that as well, and we'll go from there, I guess. We've already got one. Oh, there we go. Okay, so here we go with my slides. So, great introduction about me. Here's my introductory slide. That's me on the left. Those are with my. It's a photo with my daughters, twin daughters. They're graduating from high school later this month. Tabor and Callie. As Louise said, I studied environmental history. I was at the University of Puget Sound for my bachelor's degree, University of Montana for my master's degree. That's the book I published. I'm also a painter. I'm not much of a backpacker. I'm more of a slow saunterer. I enjoy just kind of perusing our ecosystems so I can check out bugs and wildflowers and little things like that. But Tabor, the one in the middle of the photo there, wants me to start backpacking with her this summer. So we'll see how that goes. All right. So when we're talking about my field, my industry within the fire service, and I've been in the fire service since 1998 in both operational, in other words, firefighter roles, and mitigation or risk reduction roles. Risk reduction comes down to the 6 E's: education, engineering, economic incentives, enforcement, emergency response, and empowerment. And I like to think that the presentation tonight is really about education so that I can empower you to do the right things, especially with your crew, do the right things when you're out in the field, as it were. Wow, I already had people leave. That's awkward. All right, I'm going to turn off my part of the chat here so I'm not discouraged. Okay, so
I know we do have someone monitoring the chat now, so you don't.
okay, excellent. So before we move forward, I want to give you a little bit more about my interests, and that's psychology. And this is a photo of Tally Sherrow. She's an acquaintance of mine. She works in London and Boston. She wrote several great books, and one is about this idea of the optimism bias. And the optimism bias is that we as humans overestimate positive events occurring and underestimate the likelihood of bad events or negative events happening to us. And that it's just kind of our hard wiring, really. And what this bias does is that if we allow it to guide us, we don't act on risk as we should. And I would argue that as someone sporting a Y chromosome, men in particular have a hard time acting on risk. We figure, oh, it'll never happen to us. And I know this is a human thing, but it'll never happen to us. It's never that bad, blah, 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 blah. And that's how a lot of us get stuck and we get in trouble. So, I mean, that's why people play the lottery. They I've got a little feedback there, but that's why we play the lottery, because we overestimate positive events happening, and that's why people still get married. They underestimate the divorce rate. So, and I'm not saying either one is good or bad, but anyway, that's the psychology involved for a lot of our decisions, and includes when we're in the backcountry. All right, so quick case study here: the ice fire back in 2020. Another one of the October 2020 incidents. So on October 19th, 2020, hikers down in San Juan County called 911 to report a brush fire. There were 30 or 40 of them along the Ice Lakes Trail, which is approximately 5 miles west of Silverton. Given who's on the call today, I have a feeling most of you have probably been on that. The San Juan County Sheriff's Office responded, and the undersheriff said in these quotations, the brush fire completely cut off the trail, and he didn't know how many people were up there. And I got to tell you, for someone who works for Evergreen Fire Rescue, we have plenty of trails, we have plenty of fire danger. This is one of those scenarios that can keep me up at night and wake me up in the middle of the night when we think about Maxwell Falls or Bergen Peak or any of the hikes out to the west at the base of Mount Blue Sky. How do we deal with people in the backcountry? It gives us the willies. So again, this was an actual fire here in Colorado. And incidentally, this was along the same time as the East Troublesome Fire and East Troublesome Gulch and Cameron Peak fires. So it wasn't like this was the only fire happening in Colorado at the time. There were a couple other larger ones to the north. So this was the area in the photo here. This is the area that was burning eventually in the fire. The San Juan County Sheriff's Office requested dozens of medical and firefighting helicopters and airplanes. 911 was first called at 1 p.m. And the first rescue helicopter, according to dispatch, landed at 2:40 p.m. So to have resources on scene for evacuation in less than 2 hours is spectacular, especially given how many big fires were burning to the north in the rest of Colorado. Ultimately, 28 hikers and 3 dogs who were with the hikers were rescued, and they were not all on the same portions of the trail. So let me stop here. I can answer a small question, a softball sort of question about the ice fire. But I have a feeling that some of your questions might relate to other slides that I have. So I'm going to keep running uh, until I get interrupted. Okay. And I'm good with interruptions, by the way. I'm in schools for most every day when I'm doing the other presentations. And I have teenagers, so I'm quite familiar with getting interrupted. All right, so let's do some fire science reminders. I don't put this slide in here because I think you're all goober heads. I just want to make sure that we are on the same page here. And I found in my time in the fire service that we assume knowledge of fire science when we really shouldn't. So let's start with the basics. And Linda hit on this a little bit. So when it comes to actually having a fire, we need to think about the image on the left, the fire triangle. For any fire to occur anywhere in the known universe, there must be the right amount of oxygen, the right amount of heat, and the right amount of fuel. And when we use the word fuel today, we're usually talking about coal or propane or gasoline. But please keep in mind, please remember that fuel is any substance that can burn. So as I look at my desk right now, I'm thinking the plastic in my computer, the papers on my desk, the fake wood of my desk, my chair, my clothing, and me. All of that is fuel. Now, when it's actually time to be firefighting, all we're doing is breaking the fire triangle. And while it's incredibly dangerous, it's really quite simple. It's not easy, but it's simple. We spray water on a fire to take away the heat. If there's more heat than water, then the fire keeps burning. If there's more water than heat, the fire goes out. We, like on a stovetop fire, we can put a lid over the fire and block the oxygen. Without oxygen, the fire goes out. And when we, as firefighters, burn off fuel in advance of a big wildfire, or we do mitigation around homes, or we thin trees in the woods, we mow lawns, that sort of thing, we mow native grasses, we're adjusting the fuel. And by adjusting the fuel or eliminating the fuel, we can stop the fire as well. That brings us over to the mug of hot cocoa on the right, which was a great image a couple days ago when that last storm rolled in. A mug of hot cocoa is the best way to explain thermodynamics. Heat moves. I think we can all agree that heat moves. So imagine you've got a mug of hot cocoa in front of you right now. Imagine putting your hand 2 inches above the marshmallows, and your hand is getting warmer. And that's because hot fluids rise. And a hot fluid, air or liquid, that's called convection. So we know that hot air rises. That's why flames point upward. That's why we put smoke alarms on the ceiling, that sort of thing. Now you can shake your hand off a little bit, little Taylor Swift action there. Move your hand over to about 1 inch away from the side of your mug, and you're probably still feeling a little bit of heat from the mug. That's not convection, of course, that's radiant heat. Radiant heat goes off to the sides, it goes up, it goes down, that sort of thing. And then, because our mug of hot cocoa is so wicked hot, but we want to drink it because it looks delicious, we put a metal spoon inside of the cocoa or the soup or the oatmeal or whatever it is, and the heat actually travels through the metal object or through other solid objects, and that's called conduction. So heat moves through convection, radiation, or conduction. Those are all important to think about when we are considering the danger from a fire. In fact, Linda mentioned it before. Yes, fire typically burns faster going uphill than downhill. And I'll explain a little bit more about that after we talk about the words in the middle here. And the words in the middle, this is the process called pyrolysis. Pyrolysis, which when you break that down is fire separating. So imagine a tissue box. I would say raise your hand, but of course we're not in person, so you're just going to have to trust me on this. As a solid, a tissue box is solid, right? It's not a liquid, it's not a gas. Do solids burn? And most people say yes. and that is 100% incorrect. Solids do not burn. It looks like they're burning, but solid fuel can't burn. In fact, the solid fuel or the liquid fuel absorbs heat. And that heat causes the water content that's inside of that fuel to evaporate away as steam. Then when we get a little chunk of dried fuel or waterless fuel, then it can, if there's still more heat available, that fuel absorbs that remaining heat, and that heat causes the molecules that are packed together as either solid or liquid to get excited. And as those molecules get excited, they start having their energized happy dance, and they break apart from the main fuel. And as they break apart from a solid, they become the gaseous form. If they break apart from the liquid, they become the vaporous form. But either way, it's the gaseous form or the vaporous form that actually burns. Some of those particles burn off completely, and when they're burning, they release light, they release more heat, and that's what we call a flame. Some particles only partially burn, they get blackened by the heat, and we call that cloud of blackened particles smoke. So what? I get it. So imagine holding a match, let's say it's a wooden match in your hand, and you've lit the match. If you hold the flaming part of the match higher than your fingers, the fire goes out, right? That's because the only heat that's available to vaporize or gasify, I'm going to make up that word today, gasify the solid wood underneath the flame, that radiant heat doesn't do that much good, and the flame burns out. But if you invert that so that the flaming part of the match is lower than your hand, now all that convective heat is able to vaporize or gasify, again, my made up word, the wood above it, it's drying out that fuel. It's causing the solid to break apart into its gaseous form. That's why fire burns faster going uphill than it does going downhill, typically, unless you throw in wind. But that's why this fire science stuff is so important. I don't remember what the rate is, what the rate of change is. I was never good at calculus, but it's something ginormous. Like, it's not just twice as fast burning uphill, it's more than that. So yes, if you have fire burning below you on a slope, you need to move out of the way because it's coming. Hopefully that all made sense. I know I spoke quickly, but that's just how I am when I get into the groove like this. So let me show you another triangle. We had the fire triangle on the previous slide. We also have the fire behavior triangle, and these are the three factors that influence how a fire burns. So once the fire is already cooking along, weather, topography, and fuel characteristics influence how the fire burns. So we'll start with weather. Wind clearly can blow the fire different places. It adds more oxygen. Higher temperatures, that typically is associated with greater fire danger. Relative humidity is important, and Linda alluded to this before. If the relative humidity is higher than the fuel's moisture content, then the fuel actually absorbs water from the air. If the relative humidity in the air is lower than the fuel moisture content, the air strips water out or absorbs water out of the fuel. And the less water in the fuel means it takes less heat to cause that fuel to catch fire. And then again, topography, steeper slopes. If the fire is below, steeper slopes are going to produce fire conditions where the fire burns faster going uphill. So hopefully that all makes sense. Fuel arrangement matters. But while it may seem obvious that there's more fuel in a forest than in a meadow, Linda, I'm going to take, I'm going to kind of throw your comment a little bit on its side. Grass fires typically burn faster than forest fires, especially if wind is involved. So just because you're in a meadow doesn't mean you're safe from fire danger. In fact, meadows, if the meadow's cured out or if it's dried out, that fire can burn faster through the meadow than it will through the forested area. And if it's a surface fire, the treetops may not get involved at all. If it's just burning through the litter on the ground and then through the meadow. What meadows typically have going for them is that those grasses, those wildflowers, tend to have a good water source. That's why it's a meadow. So if you're in the middle of a green meadow, or like this time of year, a greening meadow, that can definitely be safer for you. But to make a blanket statement, that gives me the willies. So really the answer is it depends. All right. So Louise, burning faster. Let's see. I got to answer this real quick. Does that mean the speed of the front edge of the fire? Yes. That means the growth. That's a great question. That means the growth of the fire along its perimeter. That perimeter is able to grow faster in a direction, and not just horizontally. It can also be vertically. And I know you can't. I don't think you can see me, but I am talking with my hands, so it's like I'm doing pantomime over here. Great question. All right, so let's go back. So wildfires and evergreen. Evergreen, and I hate to put this third bullet point on here. Evergreen has not had a big fire, more than 100 acres in over a century, and probably longer than that, because about 140, 150 years ago, there wasn't much forest to even burn in evergreen because of all the clear cutting that was done for the mining, the ranching, the community growth, the railroads, that sort of thing. But our last two big fires, our two big fires here really were Elephant Butte, and this is a photo of Elephant Butte back in 2020. That was a 54-acre fire. And then 2013 was the Bluebell Fire, and that was a mere 10 acres. But to hear our folks talk about it, you'd think it was ginormous. But it's all relative. So that's the wildfire situation in Evergreen. But we all know that big fires, ginormous fires, are definitely possible here in Colorado and throughout North America. So let's do a little bit more of know before you go. The term we use for know before you go is situational awareness. It's an idea we swipe from the military. We in the fire service swipe from the military. And again, it's a simple topic, but it's not easy to do. It just means being more aware of your situation. And the best way to do that, the easiest step to do that, is to register for the local reverse notification system. So in Jefferson County, Clifford County, Broomfield County, it's called Lookout Alert. And for any of you who live in Broomfield County, Jefferson County, or Clear Creek County, please take a picture of this QR code if you haven't already, or take a picture of the screen, and you can go to the website lookoutalert.co. It's not .com, it's .co, and register. I would also encourage all of you, if you are hiking, backpacking in any other county, anywhere in North America, that before you go, you register for their reverse notification system as well, so that you can get those alerts, and you can sign up for an address somewhere along the trailhead, that sort of thing. Or if the trail goes through multiple counties, pick different points along the trail so that you can get those notifications. Not doing that, that's on you. Now, there are other systems that I'll talk about a little bit later, but these reverse notification systems are the easiest way to get evacuation notices, to get red flag warnings, to get other warnings like tornadoes and blizzards, and even random active killers listening to leprechauns in their backpack sorts of warnings. This is how we can prepare ourselves. Just like firefighters, you should know the current and expected weather conditions for wherever you are going to be enjoying the backcountry. Uh, Definitely go to the local sheriff's office website and learn about fire weather warnings or red flag warnings. And to Linda's question, how do you know if a red flag warning is being instituted while you're out in the field? Go with the crunch factor. This is a highly scientific method. Walk through as you're walking off the trail. I know we're not supposed to do that. Take an occasional step. If pine needles and grasses are crunching under your foot, that is a pretty good sign that those fine fuels, the what we would consider 1 hour fuels, are ready to burn right now. A 1 hour fuel, you'll hear about this in the media sometimes, or you'll see it on websites. A 1 hour fuel is a fuel that's less diameter than your pinky, and it reacts to changes in relative humidity in less than an hour. So when you think about the snow that we just received here in Jefferson County a couple days ago, that snow is wrapped around all the pine needles, all the dead needles, dead leaves, dead grasses on the ground. Right now, those fuels, those 1 hour fuels, are totally saturated in water. Tomorrow, as the sun, and let's say by Mother's Day, as the sun bakes all the snow away and the relative humidity starts to drop down, it will take less than an hour for those fuels to be ready to burn. This snowstorm has had a tiny impact on fire conditions, a tiny impact on drought. Basically, in the ecosystem way of thinking, it's had zero impact. So don't be fooled by a little bit of snow. Like Linda said, bring a map and bring a paper one so that you can pull it out of your backpack or your pocket, even if your cell phone runs out of charge. Share your route and timing with someone else. Charge your devices just in case you do have cell signal. And because you can, if you have a charge on your phone and you need help, by all means, call 911. There's a chance that the closest cell phone tower will still be able to grab your call and push it to the nearest sheriff's office so you can so you can be talking to local responders. And when you're at the trailhead, park like a firefighter, which means back in. Imagine trying to back your car out of a busy parking lot when there's smoke swirling around and embers swirling around and people are freaking out and you're just trying to back up and there's so much smoke your backup camera doesn't work anymore. And there's probably critters in the parking lot that are freaked out. People in your car yelling at you like, oh, do this, do that, do this. Or you can just pull straight out because you backed into the parking space. It's far easier. So park like a firefighter. Makes you look cool too. I feel like there was another question there. Is there a way to get reverse notification on devices like Garmin InReach? I have no idea. So I would reach out to Garmin and find out. Oh, the answer is no. Excellent. Way to go, you guys, doing your own research. Makes me sound smarter. That's excellent. Okay, so again, extra supplies or tools. Bring a map. Bring a map. Bring a map. It could be my bias. My grandfather worked for the U.S. Geological Survey in the 30s, 40s, 50s, probably the 30s, in the 40s and 50s, a little bit in the 60s. When I was a little kid, I learned how to read maps because I would draw on his extra topo maps back in the hard copy days. So I'm a big fan of maps. Bring a pair of binoculars so you can see more of what's going on. Bring a compass. I know that's hard to believe. We've got compasses on our phones. But I want to save the charge on my phone for emergency use. I'll just open up a little compass. And if you are going to use your phone, and maybe like me, you've got a solar charger for your phone, put apps on your phone that include things like identifying what the mountains are, especially for new kids in the group. identifies what the mountains are. Maybe you got a lightning tracker. You can put a couple other weather apps on your phone, just so that you have as many tools as possible available at your fingertips. When you go out in the woods, again, think like a firefighter. And we in the wildland firefighting world, we talk about LCES or LACES all the time. So when we forget our LCES, that firefighters get trapped, injured, and dead. And I think this would apply to you as the backpacking section as well. So L, always be on the lookout. Have your head on a swivel. Not so much you're getting whiplash, but have your head on a swivel so that you know what's going on around you. You're looking at the clouds, especially upwind, so you can tell what the weather's doing. You're aware of what's going on, like the hikers on the ice trail or the Ice Lakes Trail. They actually noticed the smoke. Not everybody did, but some of the hikers did. Communications, have your cell phone charged. Have someone back wherever, if it's not at the trailhead, back home, that knows when to expect a call from you because you made it back to the trailhead or you made it back to the ranger station. Always think about an escape route. How are you going to get out of trouble? And then identify a safety zone as well. And it's not going to be one static safety zone, but as you're hiking, a talus slope is a great safety zone when it comes to surface fires. It's still going to be smoky and scary, but as long as that talus slope doesn't have a lot of fuel in it, that's a great place to ride out a wildfire. And then if your talus slope is up a mountain, so wherever it is, know your route. Talk to your group and identify how you're going to get there. And something I would add on here as well is your trigger point. Okay, if the smoke gets within a mile of us or the lightning gets within 5 miles of us, we're going to do X. If it's 10 miles away, we're going to do Y, that sort of thing. Know what your trigger points are and stick by them. That will help your brain overcome the optimism bias and keep you and your group as safe as possible. Autoresponder. No, all right, you guys are talking your thing there. That's good. Keep it up. Safety first, safety second, safety always. All right, I included the 18 watch out situations in the slide deck for you, not because I expect you to be wildland firefighters, but I want you to think about this metaphorically. The 18 watch out situations are common situations in fires that injure firefighters, trap firefighters, and in some cases kill firefighters. But these watch out situations, it's not a stop what you're doing and walk back to the trailhead situation. It's just, let's crank up our situational awareness a little bit more. This applies if you work in an office building. This applies every time I'm in a school setting. This applies anytime I'm sauntering or even if I'm in my own home. So think about these more metaphorically for you when you're out on a trail. And some of these do apply when it comes to wildfires on the trail. So for example, if you're doing the Leadville 100 or whatever those tortuous routes are, if you start your hike or anywhere else, if you're starting your hike before the sun comes up, reassess the situation once the sun does come up, especially if it's a new to you trail, so that you can be aware of what's going on and what the risk might be, for example. If you're a member of a group and you haven't gone over your emergency plan, you haven't gone over your escape route and your safety zone, that's a time to stop the group and ask the group lead, what should we do? Of course, you can take a nap next to the fire line. Firefighters do it all the time, but they don't all do it at the same time. If there's a dangerous situation and you are so tired that you need to sleep, that's a great time to stop, check in with your group, and figure out how to address that. So I get that this is a busy image, but again, think about this metaphorically and apply it as necessary or as appropriate to whatever your situation is. So again, let's take this out of the backcountry situation. I was in Evergreen High School for the shooting last fall, and there were several times where these watch-out situations came to bear. Uh, we, as me and the teacher, I was the instructor in the classroom at the time. She and I, when our brains would start getting tired, we would talk to each other so that number 18 didn't apply. We needed to be on our toes all the time. So if the active killer went into our classroom, we could deal with it. So, like I say, use it as appropriate and be yeah, adapt these guidelines for your situation so you can be as safe as possible. All right, so notification in the backcountry. Again, reverse notification is one great tool, but reverse notification requires you to have your phone connected to an address where that emergency is occurring. When that's not enough, the county, whatever county you happen to be in, could launch iPause. And I can't remember what iPause stands for, but that is a warning system that applies to all the cell phones in a given area. A great example of this happened a few weeks ago. For my second job, I worked for Argus Event Staffing, and we were working the Colorado Rapids soccer game at Mile High Stadium. Denver police sent out an iPause alert to notify. They were trying to notify all the residents in the area of an armed barricade situation, but they got the polygon a little too big, and because it was the cell phones in the area rather than the cell phones registered to the address of an area, all the cell phones in Mile High Stadium activated all at once. And I got to tell you, that was a pretty wild situation to have roughly 70,000 cell phones all go into alert mode at the same time. But it definitely told me that iPause can work. So if we have an emergency like a wildfire in an area where people are assumed, even just assumed to be in the backcountry, we might encourage Clear Creek County or Jefferson County to send out an iPause, and then all the cell phones that are on in that area will activate with emergency information. Word of mouth is good too. If you are aware of an emergency or a potential emergency and another group is hiking by you, by all means, share. Oh, there you go. Integrated public alert and warning system. Way to go, Keith. So, and I mean that sincerely. So if you have another group going past you, make sure they're aware of what you know in terms of emergencies. If you see smoke, make sure the other group knows that you have seen smoke. And then if you do see smoke, don't keep it a secret within your own group. I can appreciate not wanting to freak out the group, but I also know that I don't want to be surprised. Even with little kids, there's a reason why fire alarms activate in schools. It's so that everybody knows the risk as soon as the risk becomes detected. Don't keep secrets in emergency situations. That's my best advice. So, is it a wildfire? Maybe, maybe not. When in doubt, call 911. Maybe it's just a diesel startup. We in the fire service, we don't really care. Maybe it's just steam, like in the upper right there. It's steam being launched from it's a treatment for sewage pipes or whatever. Who cares? Maybe it's just a water dog, which is on the upper left and the lower right. Or maybe it's actually smoke from a wildfire. This was the Indian Gulch fire outside of Golden and along Clear Creek Canyon several years ago. When in doubt, call 911. As long as you are making your best guess, it's far better to call and find out that it's not smoke than to be like, oh, I don't really know. I don't want to bother the firefighters. We'll wait and see. That's the attitude that lets small fires become big fires. by all means, when in doubt, call 911. And don't call a 10-digit number for the local sheriff's office. Don't call a 10-digit number for the local ranger's office. Optimal foraging theory, dial 3 numbers, 911. It works anywhere in the United States, even Alaska, even what county can I pick on? Even Gilpin County. No, I shouldn't say that because there's probably some of you from Gilpin County. So dial 911. If it turns out it's not wildfire smoke, it's okay. And you're not bothering your local firefighters. If they're bothered by a smoke report, they need to stop being firefighters. That's their job. When I was a firefighter, that was my job. So don't worry about that. In terms of reading smoke, really it's tough. Reading smoke from a building is one thing, but reading smoke in the wildfire system, really focus on where the smoke is rather than the color. When you call in a smoke report, think about think about the smoke density or the volume. Is there a lot of it or a little bit of it? Is it moving to the south? Is it moving to the north? Is it moving to the east? Is it moving upslope, moving downslope? That's important. Is it moving quickly? Is it billowing out quickly? Is it billowing? Is it not even billowing? Is it just kind of hanging in the air? All that sort of information is going to be far more useful. And again, the where is important. Which ridge is it on? I believe I saw a comment in there. It may be agricultural smoke, but maybe it's a farmer or a rancher who's burning during a burn ban. Go ahead and call that in. It doesn't matter. Go ahead and call it in. Is it gray smoke? Is it black smoke? That will help us as firefighters try to spot it and see if we're seeing the same smoke source that you're seeing. If you can stay put, that's helpful. Unless you're deep on a trail, of course. And again, don't tell me that it's moving to the right or the left. Give me a cardinal direction. Is it south of your location? If when you call 911, if you know the basic latitude, longitude of where you are, and you can give us a direction that you're seeing the smoke at, degrees or that sort of thing, then when we start putting deputies on ridge lines or firefighters, we can try to triangulate the smoke source and figure out if it's actually smoke. And that's the bonus part of what's going on here. All right, I'm assuming you're still watching me here. That's good. Let's see. Yeah, white smoke, black smoke, just tell us. It's okay. Again, direction from your location, degrees from your location, landmarks, how many ridges away, is there a road nearby, is there an address near the site, that sort of thing. Farmer, wait a minute. Farmers and ranchers don't burn during bans. Okay. I'll just take that, Lisa, in case you're a farmer or rancher, but a lot of people burn during burn bans, largely because they may not know. But they could, so it's okay. I'm not ripping on farmers and ranchers. I'm just saying, let's be aware. All right, so let's say there's a wildfire in your watershed. And a watershed, I guess if you don't know what a watershed is, I can explain that. If we do know what a watershed is, then I won't explain it. So maybe it's not your watershed, it's the valley, whatever. If there's a wildfire in the valley where you're hiking, it's time to act. It's not to just kind of kick it down the road. It's time to act. And to act, you want to start moving away from the fire and its current route. And you'll be able to kind of tell its current route based on which direction the smoke's blowing. Now, it's true that the smoke could be blowing away from the slope, that sort of thing. But kind of watch the fire for a little bit. Watch where the smoke's going. To Linda's point about air quality, you don't want to be directly downwind of the smoke because it's definitely, I've got asthma. It's not going to be ideal. So move away from it, move away from heavier fuels, move into the next valley. That's a good starting point. And think about evacuating the area entirely and ideally getting back to your vehicle because that is not the place you want to be. And keep your companions with you, keep your dog with you, move as a group because if people start to scatter, that's when it's time to get the flock back together, decide as a group what your escape route is, and then move as a group to a safe area. If you can't get back to your car, depending on where your backpacking is taking you, start going toward that safety area. And that could be a different safety area than the one you identified initially, but go toward a safety zone. All right, worst case scenario, wildfire blocks your trail. But let's think about wildfire for a moment. And this drives me crazy. My pals in the media still do this. When we think about wildfire, the only part that's typically burning is along the perimeter. Once the fire moves through the fuels, and that fuel area is black, hopefully all the way black, which we would call a clean black, as opposed to a burned area where there's still some green or brown fuels. That would be called a dirty black. But let's assume, for the sake of this argument, that we've got clean black. The perimeter is the only part that's burning. And if we're talking about a surface fire, where it's just like grasses and fuels up to about 6 feet tall that are burning, worst case scenario, run through the black, down the trail, or excuse me, run through the fire into the black and wait there, which is probably not what you expected me to say. Because once the area that's already burned has burned, it's not burning anymore. It's still going to be hot. It's going to be smoky. That's fine. But run through the flames into the black and hang out. Let's see, if the burn area is black and not actively burning, then you can go through the black as well. How far do you have to run? Until it's not hot anymore. So usually the perimeter isn't very wide. The burning part of the perimeter is, I don't know, it might be 4 or 5 feet wide. It could be bigger if it's, and this is for a surface fire. I'm not talking about a crown fire. If it's a crown fire where the entire vertical tree is on fire and it's moving at the pace of a freight train, or if it sounds like a freight train, that's not what you want to do. You want to actually move to a place without those trees. But again, it's really just the perimeter that's burning. It was Cameron Peak. I think it was the Cameron Peak fire. If you remember back to 2020, there was a fire burning into Colorado from Wyoming, and there were a lot of fears through the media and online, which of course we can't trust. A lot of fears that this fire coming out of Wyoming was going to run into the back end of the Cameron Peak fire. Oh my gosh, what's going to happen when this fire from Wyoming hits the Cameron Peak fire? Well, let me ask you this. If the Cameron Peak fire has already burned, if the leading edge is off to the east, burning, say, toward the Continental Divide, and the back end is all blackened, and the fire from Wyoming is coming down toward the back end or the west end of the fire, what's the fire going to do? It's going to stop. This isn't like, it's not like two heads of a flood that slam together and now we have twice the floodwaters. That's not the way fire works. So if it's black, it's not burning anymore, it might still be hot, you can seek shelter there. That's what we as firefighters can do. If you've got a shallow creek or a pond and the fire's just on top, almost right there, certainly you can submerge yourself in the shallow creek, the pond, keep your airway, your mouth, your nose right at the surface because we don't want you to drown. I'm not telling you to drown yourself. That's not the answer. But certainly submerging yourself could work. There should be a little bit of a clear layer of air where the smoke's not right next to the water. That's really kind of the worst case situation as well. But I got to tell you, if wildfire is right on you that quickly, You've been ignoring your situational awareness for at least an hour. Fire is not going to surprise you like that. I know it does in Hollywood, but it doesn't in reality. It's still just fire, and it takes a while to get places. So when we think about the ice fire, uh, thinking about that case review, the undersheriff actually had a lot of great things to say about all the people who had to be rescued. And one was that they communicated with other hikers in the area. They worked as a group. They didn't splinter off on their own. They worked as a group. They told other groups about what's going on. Oh, we called the sheriff's office. We called 911, and there's helicopters on the way. So hang out with us, and we'll all get out together. They also followed directions from responders. So as the helicopters were coming in, the helicopters pilots and the crews use the PA systems to tell the hikers what to do. Go into the trees, for example, until after we land. Wait for all the rotors to stop, and then approach the helicopter from the nose of the helicopter. Everybody did that. So even though you might be a firefighter, you might be a helicopter pilot in your own right, listen to what the responders are telling you. They're not going to lead you astray. And because the people follow the directions, they were able to get out safely. They also triage themselves. It wasn't panic. And I hate using that word because panic rarely happens among us humans. Panic is an illogical response to an emergency. Running away from fire is not panic. That's really the right thing to do. But if you're a deer mouse and you run into the fire, like into the pile of the slash pile that's on fire, that's panic. If you're a human and you run through the perimeter of the surface fire to get to the black, that's not panic. That's strategic thinking. That's great thinking. So all these groups that had to be rescued, they figured out kind of a list of who had to go out first. The people with lung issues, the people who were older, the people who couldn't hike out on their own, they were the ones who were flown out first, and then everybody else. And in fact, they helped load each other into the helicopters. And a lot of these folks had personal locator beacons, satellite communications devices, so they could talk to Forest Service officials, the sheriff's office, all that sort of thing. They were prepared. They had situational awareness, and everybody got out safely. I mean, how cool is that? This could have been a ginormous tragedy, what we would call even a tactical cluster, but it worked out perfectly. So once a wildfire passes, though, we're not out of it. And this could be, that the fire moves through your area and now it's time to go back to your car. It could be that a fire burned through the area a couple weeks ago and your backpacking trip is you're going to go there. Be wary, be cautious around trees. We call them snags when the tree is partially burned. If the roots have burned, that means the tree has nothing holding it up but goodwill at that point. And without the roots, simply walking by, a chipmunk or a squirrel walking by could cause the ground to break free enough that the tree topples over. Falling trees kill firefighters every single year. And we train for this hazard. Unstable ground. There can be if the roots burned out in the ground, it's kind of like when you're walking in tundra areas and you see where the pikas have built their little tunnels. If you step on the wrong tunnel or the wrong place where the root burned out, you could post hole pretty easily and hurt your ankle. Think about erosion, where after the fire, a big rainstorm comes through, could damage the trail, can damage the slope above and below the trail. Please respect trail closures. Trail closures are done after a wildfire to protect all of us. And I say all of us, not just you, the trail user, but if you get stuck, that means that rescue crews need to come up as well, and they are also at risk. So I don't actually know how long that took. If you have any questions, that is my email address. I ask that you please follow Evergreen Fire Rescue on social media, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, or X, whatever you want to call it, Blue Sky. please send me your questions, comments, concerns. The only way I get better as an instructor, as much as I do in presentations all the time, the only way I get better is if you give me your feedback. And if it's all great feedback, that's great. It's not really that instructional for me as an instructor. So I will stop sharing my screen and you can ask me questions.
Ina, thank you so much. That was a fantastic
Yeah, you're
presentation.
welcome.
We've learned a lot. And Uwe, you've been managing the chat for us. Are there any outstanding questions in the chat?
Or weak questions. I can take weak ones too.
Your opinion on carrying N95 masks. Have you tested it out in the field in terms of breathing?
So N95 masks, I mean, it can work. If your lungs, if your airway is sensitive to smoke, and maybe it's not even smoke from the wildfire that's threatening you. Maybe it's one of those days where I'm sure this summer we're going to have wildfire smoke from other places in our state. If it helps, then by all means take it. The challenge for me with an N95 mask is that I have enough asthma that I need to move a lot of air into my lungs. And any sort of mask, I'm not saying it blocks the oxygen, I'm just saying any sort of mask can, it makes it even tougher for me to breathe. So N95 mask can be helpful, but I wouldn't consider it mandatory by any means, if that's helpful. And if not, you can ignore what I just said.
Oh, you're good. Thank you.
Okay, you're welcome. I couldn't see you, so I wasn't sure if you were laughing or if you were taking this seriously.
I'm packing my car, so that's why my camera's turned
Oh,
off.
that's awkward. Okay, I don't want to see that. Yeah, that's right. That's right.
Excellent presentation. I've got a quick question for you.
Sure.
The rage is AI. How much AI work is now being integrated into forecasting and probability of wildfires, where they might occur? You know, what benchmarks are for water levels or moisture levels? I mean, is that?
I don't think AI is being used for fire danger forecasting yet. It is being used by the counties for the panoramic cameras that are looking at various rural and like the backcountry areas. And the AI is getting better so that it can distinguish between like a smoke from a lightning strike compared to a chimney startup. But it's still, even with the upgrade in its, I hate to say its abilities, there's still the human factor that the dispatchers will then look at that flagged smoke and apply some human intelligence to it as well. And this is always this is a chimney startup. This is this address. We don't need to worry about it. Or when they dispatch resources, they can say, we're not sure what the source of the smoke is, but let's go put some eyeballs on it anyway. Really, the second part of that is being aware of current and expected weather behavior or weather patterns and that crunch factor. Or even, and it's weird for us in Colorado because it's always dry in Colorado, but if you've been in Colorado for a while and you don't have chapped lips all the time, if you're out on the trail and it just seems like the wind is doing funky things and your lips are extra chapped, for example, think, okay, this is a low relative humidity day. I want to be a little bit more aware of possible smoke on the horizon. That's what I do.
Well, thank you.
I'd like to follow up on your comment about having multiple apps for sometimes the same topic on your phone. And that was very important for me. I live right next to Deer Creek Canyon. And when the Deer Creek Canyon fire broke out, was that 2 years ago? I forget what they were called it now. So I woke up to smoke and quickly rushed around the house to get, documents and the dog and everything. I didn't get a ping on Lookout Alert, but I did on the Watch Duty app. and
Ah,
that was an excellent app to keep us in touch. But nothing ever came through on Lookout Alerts, which I get
so
for any other places. So sometimes it's good to have those two apps.
yeah, so a couple comments on that. Watch duty is good to know where fires are. I use Watch Duty. If there's smoke in the area, if I smell smoke in the area, I'll pull up Watch Duty, and that'll show me where prescribed fires are. It'll show me where wildfires are, that sort of thing. There's a chance that you didn't get the lookout alert, either because the polygon was drawn incorrectly, or because the sheriff's office and the wildland firefighters didn't think that fire was going to grow towards you, because I mean, that's part of it. We've had issues up here like, oh, there was a house fire in my neighborhood. Why didn't I get the lookout alert? Well, because a house fire typically stays a single house fire, or
Yeah,
that grass fire wasn't expected, based on all of our decades of experience, wasn't expected to go towards you. We also don't want to alert more people than need to be alerted, because then we get alarm fatigue, and then people stop reacting to the lookout alerts. But I also know that it can be kind of unnerving. But in the
yeah,
end, if you feel like you're in danger or even minorly uncomfortable, don't wait for the notification before you evacuate. I mean, I get that all the time. I used to work for South Metro Fire Rescue, Douglas County, residents down there. This is a blanket statement, and many of them don't like government telling them what to do. But when it comes to emergencies, they wait and wait and wait for government to tell them what to do. It's like, if you're uncomfortable, don't wait for local government. It's okay to act on your own and leave. So I would have said the same thing to you, is
yeah.
if you feel unsafe, don't wait for the brake lights. Go ahead and leave.
Right, right. Thank you.
You're welcome. What else? Those are a couple of softballs. Any tough ones?
Yeah. Keith, I'm sure you've got questions. You've been looking at all kinds of apps and emergency responses to Garmin's. Any questions from you?
At the very least, I'll tell you I don't know. I have no problem admitting when I don't know something. No questions now, lots of research to do. I can appreciate that entirely.
Okay.
Thank you.
Well, if no one has any other questions, I really want to thank you so much for the
You're welcome.
presentation. And just so trip leaders know as well, the CMC emergency number is there for you to call to say you're okay as well. So that's why we recommend having a detailed emergency plan for all participants that they can send out to their emergency contacts before you leave. And then if a wildfire breaks out, we all know where you are, and you can call that emergency number, and they'll call everyone's emergency contact and say, "Hey, you're fine," even though a fire's broken out. So use the CMC emergency number, and that was something I just learned recently. It's not just for death or dismemberment or something like that. Let people know that you're okay. So use
But
it.
call 911 first,
Yes, call 911 first.
then call the
Absolutely.
CMC number. With all due respect,
No, understood.
get the cavalry coming first, and then call everybody else.
Yeah.
One,
Okay,
one quick
And
question.
Ina, thank you so
Oh
much.
yeah, wait, I got one more
Appreciate it.
question.
One
Oh,
more
sorry.
question.
Yeah.
Money. What's the money situation look like this summer for firefighters? Is everybody appreciating there'll probably be a lot and budgets are there, or everybody's scrambling for the dollar?
At some level, the budget's always going to be there. The county sheriff is ultimately responsible for any wildfire in the sheriff's district, or in that county, I should say. So the sheriffs are always on the hook. If it's a big enough fire, then the sheriff reaches out to the governor, and then the governor has to start scrambling to find money in the state budget. And then the big ones go federal. The challenge right now is that politically, Colorado seems to be getting punished by the federal decision makers. So, I mean, who knows where the money's actually going to come from? But I mean, the firefighters will still deploy. If it's a big fire in Colorado, we'll still use our state dispatching system for in-state resources and for out-of-state resources to come in. Just like our resources, if they're available, will go out of state for various fires. The firefighting effort will still be there. There just may be unpaid bills at the end of the year. But that's something that I mean, that can happen at any time. It just seems to be happening more recently. But it doesn't mean that we're going to stop fighting fires. Like, oh, I can only work for an hour today. We're not doing that. We're still going to respond and get the job done.
Well, we appreciate you and all your colleagues, Ina, so thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thanks for letting me participate. Thanks for being patient with me. And like I say, if you have any questions, email.
Thank you. Thank you. Again, this is recorded, and the recording and the slides will be on the backpacking website in the next few days. Thank you, everybody.
Awesome.
Thank you also to Linda.
Thank you.
Okay. Oops.